All right. Good morning. Welcome everyone to the Daily Huddle. Nope, it's not Sorrel Caton or Giovanni Gonzalez. It is me, Sheila James, your empowerment coach. Sorrel Caton and Giovanni have asked me to host this morning's conversation. So it's us, it's you, and I. So here we go. We're going to jump right in here. And our question for today, well, I'm looking for it, Liza. Do you have it in front of you? Why don't I see it? All right. Well, it's about being Black. All right. Being Black is more than your skin color, part two. Being Black is more than your skin color, part two. So when Sorrel asked me to speak about this again, I was like, oh my God, what am I going to talk about? But you don't need to do much work when you look at this question and you look at the color of my skin. And I asked them to give me a few questions today on what could provoke this inquiry, this opportunity to really engage in this conversation. So he asked me, number one, to share my personal journey and what being Black is more than your skin color means to me. Well, my personal journey is actually quite historic. I grew up in Gary, Indiana. Some of you have heard this over and over, but it doesn't hurt to hear it again. Middle child of 7. My father was a Baptist minister, went to school at Morehouse College with great prolific leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. Benjamin Mays was the president of Morehouse College, Otis Moss, etc. And so really, I grew up with this conversation in the womb, is what I tell people, and I've heard about the fight for equality, the fight for justice, the fight for jobs. So what is meant for me is always some conscientious level of thinking and being engaged in what's working in our country, in our communities, in America, and what is not working in our country. They didn't language it that way, but it was a lot of that, and poor people and the right for justice and equality. So for me, it's always meant being, one, conscientious and present to that something was different over here with me just because my skin is Black, just because for no other reason than my skin is Black. And then two, had me have a sense of not obligation like a burden, but obligation like an opportunity to understand, provide leadership, and make a difference in my community. And thus, when you make a difference anywhere, you make a difference everywhere. So good morning, everybody. Stan and Rashida. It'll probably be a little bit of a different format. And Florence, I'm your guest host today on Friday. And I'm talking about being Black. Like really, really being Black. And then what I also started to look at was over the years and being Black and being a Black leader and how it has shaped the conversations that I have and or engage in. One thing that I noticed were the conversations that we are locked out of. Like there's so many, I know sometimes when I'm with some of my friends who are of diverse cultures, Asian or white, etc. But particularly when I'm with white women, they're oftentimes they'll be talking about things and I'll be saying, well, what is that? Well, and I'm not I'm not a spring chicken, right? But I still don't understand a lot of the conversations that they're engaged in. And I'm not in that conversation because I have no idea what they're talking about. So some of those things are part of what separates us from and has that gap in America. And we kind of have made strides, there's so much that we're still locked out of. And then other things we're locked into. So when you look even in cities, like a city like Atlanta, You can go in some areas, like I like to drive on Saturdays. I just get in my car and just drive. And I'll go out and see all these big old houses and people walking with their dogs, and they don't have a care in the world about somebody coming to shoot them or anything like that. And then there are some Black neighborhoods, particularly in Georgia, where that is the case. But for the most part, when you go into the Black community or when I go into my church, there's something I'm going to be present to that I'm not present to where I live. Like, I'm not gonna come out of my church door and walk over 2 or 3 homeless people. And I'm not going to, or I'm not going to drive down the street and see a lot of, and I'm going to drive down the street when I leave my church and go right into boarded up areas. Or even the other day, I left my church, and which is in East Point, and I went to the Atlanta University Center with Spelman College, Morehouse College, Clark College, the Atlanta University, where some of the most Black profound minds are being educated. But what struck me was, so I'm going somewhere with all this, y'all. Stay with me. What struck me was, it was kind of like a horseshoe where Spelman and the Morehouse School of Medicine, and then Morehouse, then Clark. It was kind of like a horseshoe. But then surrounding all of that was like a heavy load, at least for me. That was my experience. A heavy load of what? A heavy load of still poor people, the infiltration the drugs have had on us and the impact of that, the challenge, like where do you go from here? The challenge of how do we get out of the soup? It's almost like we've got our educated minds being educated. And I mean, it's amazing. I went to Spelman College, but at the same time, that could be, let me say it another way, the Harvard of the South. And what do I mean by that? The most beautiful community, the campus itself is beautiful, but I mean that whole area. What would it take to move from where we are, what's predictable, to what is actually possible, what is now available in America in the 21st century? There's just, this question is so loaded, you guys. So if I'm all over the place, it's because the question, and I'll take some questions and we'll engage a little bit more in just a minute, but I want to kind of create like the challenge of that, just the physical challenge. You know, where I live right now in Doraville, they've been doing this work with the money that have come to cities and transforming, they're getting ahead of the sewage situation. And, you know, just all this construction, etc. Now, while we did get the water contract, there's so much more that's failing in our community with the infrastructure. And I don't see nobody over there working. So the disparity is huge still. And it's like my experience is that it's like, while we're making gains, there's so many gains to make. What was one of the other questions? Can you, in what ways do you think societal perception of Blackness limit or enhance the potential of Black leaders? Well, it can enhance it if we're doing the thinking, the plotting, and the planning to move it forward. You know, America is a capitalistic country, and they will kill their mother to hold on to that belief, to capitalism. And we're seeing that and experiencing that right now in this political campaign and this political climate here in America. They'll do anything to hang on to that capital. And then at the same time, though, for us, we've got to do the work. We've got to start to disappear, so to speak, certain conversations like still this illiteracy. Are you kidding? This is the 21st century in what at least once was the most powerful country on the face of the earth. By the way, I stopped saying that because I don't know if that's even the truth. I think that's something that's been created in language and we all just took it. I also noticed that inside of our own heritage, what we inherited, which was pretty no culture, and trying to discover, find, create, we've done, and I don't want to diminish the great things, But where the juice is the things that are missing. That we're trying to still do a better version of what they're doing versus creating our own path. And follow me. I'm the leader. I'm leading this. And follow me, follow us. So I think the challenges are one of creativity, blazing our own trail, reinventing ourselves. I noticed that the other day, and we say that, and I don't want to say that lightly, but I was really looking at my life and I'm at a new phase, a new era. And I said, gosh, what if I did throw the baby, the bathwater out with the baby? I mean, well, however you say it. But what if I just really look to see what is it? God spare me another 20 to 25 more years in my life. What do I want it to look like? What do I want to create now? And start there. Start from nothing, getting to nothing. And it takes something to get to nothing because there's a lot in our space. How we wake up, how we live, the clutter in our homes, the car we drive. Would I even drive a car? I'd like to just live in a nice, quiet place by a creek, maybe with no car, I don't know. But that too is all a part of being Black, like allowing myself to think and dream and expand from a different perspective. And then the last thing I want to hit on, and then I want to open this up to other people to engage. I've been doing a lot of work on my ancestry and my heritage in being Black. And sometimes you hit a jackpot. And the one thing, jackpot for me has been that I have gotten to go to 5 great-grandparents on my father's mother's side. And it has rocked my world. I'm really kind of getting moved by it because forever we thought that we had all this Indian blood. We don't even know who we are. All this Indian blood and etc. And then I come to find out it's not that at all. Her father's father was a white man who was a judge, and he had my grandfather by an unknown slave girl in Simpson County, Mississippi, which, by the way, we thought we were all from Arkansas as well. And so, but the DNA doesn't lie. When they say 53 DNA matches, they mean that. And then as you go further up, you see, to the 5th, we see family crest and all this land and sergeants who were in the Confederate Army and one grandfather who came over on the Waterton, some boat. Well, what's the Waterton? So now I'm like into this almost every evening. And what am I saying? I'm fascinated. Like I have no clue of even who I am. I'm starting to discover, and I'm starting to discover America from a whole nother, men and women who fought in the American Revolution War. Men and women, I didn't even know, I don't think any of my siblings knew. We knew my father, my mother's father, and my uncle fought in World War II. Were in World War II. I don't know that they necessarily fought. But what I didn't know was my father's father was also in World War II. We saw his registration card. So there's all kinds of things now that have provoked me into how I have come to be. And what must it have been like for that unknown slave girl? Was she raped? Was she just used by the grandfather when he wanted? Was he, just it's so much. But at the same time, if you come fast forward, we're walking around whistling Dixie, and we really still do have challenges as leaders. Where do we go from here? It's not about be like someone else. It's not even about catching up, because you're not going to make up 400 years. You can gain ground and live a great life and make a contribution and make a difference and provide leadership. But to answer it all for me, you want to get to the source of who you are to the best that you can, what you stand for, and what your life is going to be about in this country that we know as America, I don't add all the other stuff anymore. No and love and all that. I don't make up stuff like that anymore. I just don't do it. I really look to see and I carefully craft what I'm about to say when it comes to this conversation. All right, I'm going to stop right there for a minute, and I want to see if there's anybody out there in the huddle who has something to say, add questions, something to contribute here. Anybody, just raise your hand if you do. Who is that? Florence. Yes, Florence.
Oh, this is a juicy conversation. Thank you for it.
You're welcome.
Oh, yesterday for the first time, but I never wanted to come to America because my father was a historian. My father wasn't that educated, but he read. I mean, when I say educated, he didn't go to, certain higher education or anything, but he read. I mean, and he told us about stuff. He has told me about the history like of the world. And he has given me a different view of history than has been given by American schools or what. The confusion is Black people in America don't know their history. It really has been hidden. And that's
Yes.
one of the biggest things, okay? And then now, sadly, this man in Florida is actually, and whoever else, they are determined to do more whitewashing than they have ever done before. I mean, they did it before, but now they're conscious, they're absolutely whitewashing everything. Like this didn't even happen. Like whatever. So
yes,
we have a responsibility, as you said, to find out who we are. For me, I knew who I was before I came to America. I'm Guyanese, but I knew who I was before I came to America. And I really didn't even want to come here. But I believe God brought me here. And I said, if I'd come here younger, I surely would have been in politics. Like I would have been in politics, And yesterday, for the first time, I wrote a letter to the 44th President Obama, and expressed certain things to him. I said, please whisper in Biden's ear and tell him this, a message from me, from God. Okay.
awesome.
So I am actually like, oh my heavens, I am doing something. And with that, I'm
really
complete.
great. Thank you so much for sharing, Florence. You brought something up that I do want to point out. It is our responsibility to get our history out there. We have enough educators. We have enough historically Black colleges and universities. So we have the institutions, we have the minds to do the work and get our history out. I don't care what they do in and out of schools. We have enough resources. We have our churches. We have ways that we can begin to educate ourselves. And you really hit up on something because, see, the thing is, we've got to do the work ourselves. Our people became free because somebody just drew a line in the sand. By the way, the accomplishments we are for today, and there are so many. Someone drew a line in the sand. No, it's going this way. Life is going the way I say. It's going this way. And we've got to get like that I recommend us getting like that about our heritage, our history, our personal knowledge of who we actually are. I mean, I am like up almost every night till 2 a.m. writing and studying, where I came from. And then you can ask intelligence, well, what was it like back then? And so just a very good point that you made there. And then I saw another question that Mr. Caton left for me. What advice would I give young Black professionals aspiring to leadership positions? Listen, you want to be grounded, and you want to do the work. There's something to be learned and gained from sports. I love sports, but athletes, they don't just go out there and play basketball and make the judgment and assessment that they're really good. They may know that they're good. They may have the heart and the desire to be better, to be great, but then they do the work. They hire coaches. You know, I watched a clip of LeBron James and his coach training. You know, this man is what, in his 40s, training like he's 20, but he's putting the work in. So there's the work you do at work, but then there's the work you got to do outside of work on yourself, your community, your environment. You want to be engaged in all activities. You want to get more engaged than we have been as a race. I applaud us for this in our expanded travels, expanded learnings, educating ourselves. So we want to, and it's not about beating someone else. Beat yourself every day. Get up every morning and be a better you. Be better than you were the day before. Be more giving than you were the day before. Be generous. Be kind. Be effective. Get in the game. Get on the court. Be who you're going to be as a leader. And let people define yourself. That's what I want to say. Let people be wowed by who you're being. All right. Any other questions or anything else someone would like to contribute to this conversation before we begin to wrap it up? I don't see any hands. All right. So I'm gonna go to one more question. I think my hope for the future. It's kind of what I spoke to just then. Part of my hope for the future is that I'm going to be honest, that we get a grip on ourselves. We are not our naked bodies shaking our booties to the world. I'm sorry, I gotta just say it. I got a shot, so I'm gonna take my shot. My hope for the future is that we become better, stronger men and women. That we begin to correct, we begin to self-correct as Black people. And we got to stop with the excuses. The excuses can be really true. I'm sure for Harriet Tubman, when she woke up and, you know, they got the dogs and the slave catchers and all this stuff going on, I'm sure it really was like, are you kidding? I'm not going to get out there and try to walk myself to freedom. And they did it anyway. So what am I saying? We've got to do the work. And we got to keep doing the work. And and sometimes we get sidetracked by the opportunity to make a lot of money. But sometimes the means and the modality ends us up in a place called prison, which we don't want to be. I was looking yesterday at the news where they were showing they're going to renovate the Atlanta jail, and they were showing pictures of the inside of the jail. Let me tell you, I wouldn't put a dead dog in some of those cells. I wouldn't put a dead dog in some of those cells, but some of our brothers, our sisters, our cousins, our mothers, for whatever reason, our children have ended up there in a place where I wouldn't put a dead dog. So what is my hope for the future? That we begin to self-correct, that we clean up our homes, that we clean up our minds, our souls, that we clean up our communities. Everybody can, if you walk past a piece of paper on the ground, you can pick it up and throw it in the trash. That we clean things up. We clean up our acts. We continue to educate. We continue to perform in every area of life, government, community, entrepreneurship, the law, that we rewrite the law. You know, the law can be rewritten. We're watching that right in front of us. We're having someone run for office of president with 34 felons, and seems to not be a problem. But it would be a problem for you and I, okay? Don't get it twisted. So my hope is that we become citizens. Citizens of what? of who we are and who we know ourselves to be. And if you don't know who you are, find out. Really, begin to find out. Get in the wonder, get interested, get educated, get knowledge. Knowledge is golden. Knowledge is power if you apply it. So my hope for the future is that we shift the trajectory where we have had gains and strides. We continue on that upward trajectory, and where we need to go to work, where we still have poor people, where we still have drugs and alcohol infiltrating our community. I can't even talk enough about the impact that drugs and alcohol has had on our community. I mean, the impact, our families. I promise you, there's nobody who's even listening who's here right now in the huddle who doesn't have it in their family. So we can change, we can transform, we can become someone new. We really can. We became who we are right now. So you can shift things on a dime. You really can shift it, but you've got to say so. You've got to take the steps and seize the opportunity. And that's what I have today for the daily huddle. I don't know, Liza, if we've had those 7 things to end the conversation for today, but I really do invite and encourage us to take things to the next level, to get engaged, to not only vote, see to it that the people around you vote, see to it that the senior citizens vote. People who I am, I did watch my father put out signs. They did go door to door back in the day. They did do protest, and it was effective. And they did engage us in wanting to be somebody. I remember, I'll never forget Jesse Jackson's speech, "I am somebody." That speech changed my life. It changes it today. There are times when I think, oh God, it's just too much. I don't know. And then I say, but wait a minute, I am somebody. Yeah, I may be Black. I may be poor. I may be down. My husband may have just left. I may be concerned about my son. My nephew was just shot, and I am somebody. You are somebody. We are somebody. So again, that's what I have on being Black. And I want to leave with the closing of what we normally close with on the Daily Huddle. Hopefully this has made a difference to somebody somewhere, and something I've said today touches something in you that will provoke you to excel, exceed, perform. And if you could put that back up, Liza, and I will close it out this morning. And I thank you so much, Sorrel and Giovanni, for having me be here. Do we have it? I know it's laugh often. Where is it? I don't see it if it's up. Does anybody here know what it is? There it is. Love always. Stress less. Laugh out loud. All right. And I don't see the others. That's enough. Just love always. If we just left with that, life would be much, much better. All right, everybody. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being on the huddle with me. If there's anything you want to say, please put it in the chat. All right. I am Sheila James, your empowerment coach, St. James Media. www.stjamesmedia.com is how you can find me. And everybody have a great, safe Friday and a fantastic weekend.
Thank you, Sheila.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you very much, Sheila.
All right. Thank you. There's somebody.
Thank you.
Thank
Excellent
you.
job.
You're welcome.